It's TiffanysContent, and we have an ice storm headed our way. That's right. It is coming our way, and it'll be definitely bringing in some huge chunks of ice and even more snow. This is mostly an ice storm, okay? So it'll be bringing a lot of freezing rain, and that's what's going to cause these huge chunks of ice that'll be falling on trees, on the streets and grounds, and then it'll also be trying to melt its way out, okay, like unthaw. But see, the problem with that is since it's so cold, it'll refreeze right after it unthaws, okay, and turn into more ice and more freezing rain. It'll be so cold that the rain will come down like freezing ice, and you can see that on the streets as well. That's when the streets get slippery and slick, and again, that rain coming down will start freezing like in midair. As it reaches the ground, it'll be ice. So just make sure you're aware of that black ice. Watch my black ice video because it can be dangerous out there. And of course, you still have a few inches of snow down in certain places, and just remember, it's going to be very slippery on those roads. Look at that. It's trying to warm up out there. 50s and 40s over there on the west coast coming out of California. It's kind of warm in the Gulf, but that's where that storm is going to be sprucing up and headed towards that east coast. Okay, this is the wind chill. That wind chill is still in the negatives over there in the Midwest going into the Great Lakes, and it's going to be clashing with that system that's coming out of the Gulf, and that's what's bringing that huge winter ice storm that we have overnight tonight going into Monday and Tuesday. This is the current snowfall that's currently on the ground, and you can see right there by the Great Falls going into all the mountains. It's a lot of heavy snow that's still down there, and it's a few inches still on the east coast, but look at the Gulf trying to spruce up those storms. And you can see it right there in the frost freeze temperature. You still got negatives coming out of that upper United States that'll be meeting up with that Gulf system. And look at this right now. This is the current ice accumulation, and it's already up to a half an inch in certain places, definitely in Oklahoma, Arkansas, going up into Missouri, definitely reaching almost an inch of ice on the ground. That's slippery. And then it's definitely coming out of that Gulf Coast, out of Texas, definitely working its way up that east coast, and you'll be able to see that here. See, it's going right into Illinois, right into the Great Lakes, and definitely going right on that east coast, coming out of New York and going up to Maine. So it's definitely going to be an icy weekend going into Monday and Tuesday even. So just make sure that you're aware of these street and road conditions, okay? Mostly on that, I'll show you right there, mostly here, coming right out of the Gulf system. You got that flooding in Louisiana, that hard freeze warming in Alabama and Mississippi, and then you got all that winter activity just coming out of Texas, Oklahoma into Kansas, and also Arkansas, parts of Missouri and Illinois. It'll be taking a toll on that, and all of that is icy. And of course, that west coast is still flooded over there. You got those gale watches and warnings over there, and still that winter activity coming right into Montana and Idaho. But this is the attention right here. All of that is freezing rain possible, okay? Possible freezing rain, and down there in the Gulf by Louisiana and Texas, that's heavy rain and flash flooding. So flash floods can just be instant, bunks of rain coming down, and you don't even know it. Within 6 hours, it's flooded, the whole streets. Okay, and it only takes 12 inches to wipe away your car. So just be careful. Look at that. That whole East Coast will have that freezing rain coming right up the East Coast. That's coming from the Gulf, and that heavy rain and flash flooding will still be sprucing up the Gulf. And this is, today's going into the next few days. So just be aware of all of this precipitation that's out, even snow coming up there. And you can see that in this map here. You're going to see all that ice, that orange is that ice that's coming, from the west coast, from the Gulf, meeting up with that system, out of the Midwest, and it's definitely going to take a toll on that east coast. But look at all that heavy rain that is coming along with it, right in Texas and stuff. So look at that. This pink is like more ice, okay? So you still have ice on the west coast and on the other side of Texas in the south, but it's definitely some ice storm warnings, winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, winter storm watches and hazards outlooks right there above, the Gulf Coast coming out of Louisiana into Missouri and also Arkansas. You definitely have all these watches and warnings, a hazard outlook that's trying to work its way up to the northeast coast. And you can see it here. That's outlined, that freezing rain, that heavy rain, those flash flood warnings. And then on the west coast, you got that heavy precipitation. It's still flooded over there, and it's still a lot of power outages, okay? So it's still heavy snow coming down on the west coast as well. It's just kind of weird because it's warm, but it's like snowing in some areas. So this is the outlook for, the next day or so up until Tuesday. And you can see that it's going to be a lot of rain, marginal flooding, flash flood warnings, definitely a lot of rain coming through, a lot of precipitation on that west coast as well, coming out of California and, trying to work its way over to the south near Texas. But you're going to see that there's a lot of flash flood warnings this weekend going into Monday and Tuesday. Definitely a lot of flash flood warnings on that west coast, and you can see it there in the yellow. That's where it has the most attention to, right there on California. And of course, out of the Gulf Coast there, right by Texas and Louisiana, that's where all those lightning and thunderstorms, those flash flood warnings that's coming out of there and meeting up with that system in the Midwest. You can see that for the next few days. It's going to be taking a toll going right into Tennessee as well, and Kentucky, and then it's going to clash in with that, Midwest and lake effect snow. It's definitely going to be some damage over there. This is the precipitation just for today. And you can see that Texas is going to have a lot of rain coming out of there, and also California, Washington, and Oregon, okay? And it's all trying to work its way together. You see that? The next few days, it's going to have a lot of rain coming up out of that Gulf Coast. More of that south. The south is going to be flooded with rain, and this is for the next 3 or 4 days, the amount of rain accumulation. And even on the west coast, to me, that's a lot when you have that ice storm out there, because it freezes back up into ice, okay? Because it's still so cold. That pink on the west coast is still ice. So you got some ice right there in Oklahoma, and it's showing you here on this map. And then you got more systems moving in, all that low pressure, the mixed precipitation, the snow, the rain, the ice. You see it, it's just working its way through, it's pushing its way through that west coast. So it's definitely a lot of flooding activity, flash floods warnings over there on the west coast. So beware. It may be unthawing, but it will be a lot of rain and precipitation on the ground, okay? And of course, you're going to see it on the east coast where all that ice is accumulating right there in the pink. It's showing you right there where all those storms are sprucing up, okay? It is definitely, a lot of low pressure that's over there trying to work its way into the east coast and go right up the northeast where all that high pressure is currently at right now. And then of course you're going to see that stationary front under Texas, which means that rain is going to be sitting there for a little while until it decides to move out and turn into even more freezing rain. And you'll be able to see that on Pivotal Weathers right here. This is the GFS, and that pink and that peach is that ice, and that blue is that snow. So it'll be mixed precipitation coming in there. And then look at all those lightning and thunderstorms and rain that's coming up out of the Gulf. That's an ice snowstorm, guys. That's a snowstorm, okay? So just be aware. The thing is, how long would it last? But it's definitely an ice storm out there. Make sure you're checking your local listings. I am not forecasting. I'm not predicting. We're just, reacting to this crazy weather. It's Tiffany's Content. Like, share, subscribe.